Are you playing events correctly? There's a lot to discuss when it comes to how events work in top drives. Hopefully this video will help. Hi, I'm Mike. Although this video is aimed at new top drives players, maybe there will be something helpful in here for longer term players. I hope so. Let's get on. I've got a lot to cover. It surprised me the amount of topics that could be discussed around events. I'm going to talk about it all. How events work, what happens with minimum races, some tactics for playing events, and just a load of other stuff that might help you with the player versus player side of the game. I'll start with the basics. Unlocking events. Events unlock depending on your personal RQ level. You gain RQ by playing the campaign levels and through normal event play. As your RQ increases towards the maximum 500, you will unlock more events. Often the first confusion new players have is when they see two of the same event showing up. This looks like a bug, but it's actually caused by you leveling up in RQ. There are steps in the RQ range. Once you break through one of those steps, you will still have the old RQ level event, but you will also have a new event for your new RQ level. Play both events, get lots of rewards. It's a feature you should take advantage of, everyone else has. Event brackets. There are thousands of people playing top drives. Not all of those people can compete in a single event against everyone else. It would be an absolute mess. So the players are grouped firstly into region. For instance, all the players in European countries are grouped together, the Asian countries are grouped together, etc. Within each of those regions, there will still be thousands of players. So when an event starts, it has a maximum number of players allowed in each bracket. The bracket is the table of player names you see listed by the number of points each player has won. Most brackets are between 100 players and 300 players. There will be a lot of brackets per event, some of which will be open for new players to join at the same time. But once a bracket gets to its maximum capacity, then no more players will be able to join that specific bracket. But don't worry, there will always be a bracket open, so you can always join the event. You won't miss out because you haven't joined early. The other thing about brackets is you don't choose which bracket you enter, the server does that automatically. Track sets. Every event has 4 track sets. You will play each of those track sets in a random order for the first 4 times you play in an event. After you've played each track set once, the game will randomly pick which track set you play on for your future races. You can see the track sets before you choose your hand by clicking the Match Info button in the top left. Rewards. Every event gives out rewards at the end of it. Different events have different rewards. I'll talk about the different event types later in the video, but for now, all you need to know is that the event will have a prize tiers. The higher up the table you finish, the more rewards you get. In basic events, you will see the top tier rewards are a ceramic pack, some gold and some cash. Lower placed players get less and less rewards as they are grouped into their tiers. Some larger events like a tri-series event may give away a specific car along with the pack, the gold and the cash. The cars offered in the rewards will get lower RQ as the tiers go down. Many events give out extra rewards. These include tokens to enter a specific challenge, flags for redeeming in the monthly themed season challenges, renown for completing the campaign levels, and trophies for increasing your visible status in the game. Trophies. As I just said, you get trophies when you play an event. When you personally get to RQ 500 and over 4,000 trophies, you will be put into the full pool of players. Up to that point, you will be matched against players who are at a similar level in the game as yourself. Mainly new players with small garages. When you get to RQ 500 and 4,000 trophies, you will be put in with everyone else, whether they are a casual player with a small garage or a big player who has over 5,000 cars. This is often a bit of a shock, because you go from placing high in events to being near the bottom of events. Keep playing, you will get more competitive. Event durations. Every event has a duration set for it. A start time and an end time. If it is a 2-day event, you can join at any time within that 2-day period. Joining early will give you more time to get cards from the prize boards. Joining later will mean you don't need to monitor your position for as long or play as much to stay in that tier you deserve. If you enter within the last 4 hours of an event, you may not be put in a new bracket. You may be added as an extra player to an existing bracket. This is called overfilling. It means a bracket that was capped at 100 players could swell up to 120 or more players if there were a lot of late joiners. Overfilling is to stop players joining an empty bracket at the end of an event and winning prizes they don't deserve. Minimum races. Another way Hutch have tried to stop late joiners taking good prizes is by implementing a minimum race requirement. To get a specific tier in your bracket, you must race a minimum number of races, not including the races other people have played against you. You can see how many races you need to complete in the rewards list. This will also highlight your actual position compared to your position in the table. If you don't race the minimum to be awarded the results for your tier, then you will drop down to the tier you are eligible for. What happens in those situations is the player below you in the table are moved up to take your position and take your rewards. That's provided they have played enough races themselves. The flip side of this is, if you have played enough tickets but the players above you have not, then you will be moved up in the table and may receive better rewards if you jump into the next above tier. Tickets. You can only play 5 tickets at a time in an event. After you've played a ticket, the timer starts to refresh the next ticket. In a normal event, each ticket refreshes after 30 minutes. Therefore, all 5 tickets will be playable after 2.5 hours if you want to play them in batches of 5. Doing the maths, this means if there were a minimum race requirement to play 25 races to get the top 10 position, then you will need to wait for 20 tickets to refresh after you play your first 5 tickets. 20 tickets takes 10 hours, so you should leave enough time to play those tickets throughout the day, joining the event before you get into the last 10 hours. Clearing prize boards. Every time you win in an event, you will be shown the prize board. Depending on the stars you win, you can turn over upwards of 3 cards. On the prize board is always 3 lots of 250 cash, 3 lots of 3 gold, 3 common cards, 3 uncommon cards and 3 rares. The cards in the prize board change with every board. You can look at the footer for the names of the car manufacturers, coloured as per their rarity, but there are no more clues to what the cars are available or where they are on the actual prize board. There are a few tactics you can consider when playing events. Choosing your cars. Every event has an RQ allocation you can use to choose your cars. You cannot exceed that number, but there is a few different ways you can use it. You could choose a balanced hand spreading the RQ equally between your cars. This is sometimes a reliable way to not be knocked down the table by other players, but it may not allow you to compete in the top positions unless all your opponents have balanced hands too. You could choose 3 strong cars and 2 weak cars, because you only need to win 3 wins out of 5 to beat an opponent. Or you could choose a single weak car for a twisty track like a G-Force or a slalom, giving you more RQ to include some of your best cars on the faster tracks or the drag tracks. You can win more extra points on a drag track than you can on a twisty track, so putting a better car on those tracks might give you the edge against your opponent. If your opponent generally has a better hand than you, and their couple of great cars are better than your best cars, then you can put your worst cars against their best cars and use your best cars against their worst cars. This may mean you get some wins and they get some wins. If you have offset the points in your favour, then you might win. This works especially well if your opponent has one really powerful car on a twisty track and you are able to throw away a lesser car against it that only loses by 50 points. Upgrading cars. Don't upgrade cars in your garage for minor events unless you really want to upgrade them. If the prizes aren't good enough to warrant upgrading cars, then don't. Save your fuse material for an event where you have the possibility to win a great pack or a prize car. Bonus points. In some events, the car criteria states that a specific car or category of cars will have bonus points given to them if they win. They don't lose bonus points if they lose. However, if your opponent has a car with the bonus points tagged to it, then they will win the bonus points. Don't be seduced by choosing a car with the bonus points if it is unlikely to ever win a race. Pick the cars that will win. If one of those has bonus points allocated to it, then that will help. But if it never wins, it'll never win you bonus points. Matching cars to track sets. Every event has 4 track sets. If you find that they are very different, then you might need to work out the worst case scenario and build your hand to that. The first thing to check is for city streets tracks. They need medium and high ground clearance cars because they have speed bumps. If only one track set has a city streets track, then it might be wise to ignore it using a low car and take the loss when that track set comes up, making your hand stronger on the other 3 track sets. Check for off-road tracks and wet tracks. Try to find a hand that meets the 4 track sets the best you can. Ghost hands. When you play a ticket in an event, the cars you pick on a specific races 1 to 5 will be stored and used for other players in the bracket to play against you. This hand is called a ghost hand. It is the last hand you played on that track set. Opponents play your ghost hand and win or lose, affecting your place in the table. You have some control over the strength of your ghost hand because they are the cars you have placed on the specific races. But if you've made a mistake and placed the wrong car on the wrong race, you will need to hope the track set comes up again quickly so you can correct it. Choosing your opponent. When you are choosing your opponent, you will be presented with 3 players lower than you in the table and the 3 players higher than you in the table. The list of opponents may be less if some of those players haven't set a ghost hand on the specific track set that has come up. Choosing your opponent does affect the number of points you win. If you choose the highest opponent in the table, then you will win slightly more points than playing the lowest opponent. The points are spread out for the opponents in between, so playing a harder opponent wins you more points. If you are only represented with a Hutchbot player, then you will only win 10 points for winning. If you lose, the number of points you lose is also linked to the position in the table versus their position in the table. The range of points is from 17 to 10. When choosing your opponent, you should always think about where you are in your tier in the table. If you are trying to maintain a position in a tier, then hitting players who are in the tier below is the best choice. If you win, you will get points and they will lose points, putting them further away from taking your place in the tier. It is generally considered the best form is to hit down the table. Try to put a points gap between the players in your tier and the players in the tier below. Playing against players in your own bracket will not create that divide and will not help you secure your position in the tier. However, sometimes this is not possible. Sometimes you're in the middle of a bracket and you have to hit players around you. Or sometimes you can't beat any of the players below you, so you have to play against the player who you can beat. If you have a hand which is better than the people above you, you should definitely hit the players above you and try to move up the table. It's good form not to try keep hitting the same player. You don't want to make an enemy out of them. If someone does hit you a lot, try not to take it personally. Maybe you're the only hand they can beat. Remember, you will meet a lot of the same players in different events, so making an enemy out of a player isn't wise. Playing last 10 minutes. The most active time for players in an event is the last 10 to 15 minutes. If you are secure in your tier in the table, then you need not worry too much, but it's always wise to leave 5 tickets for the end of an event. Check your brackets 10 minutes before the end. If you need to play more tickets to regain your tier, then do it quickly. If it's an important event and you have dropped a tier, play those 5 tickets and buy 5 more tickets. Buying tickets and servicing. In normal events, you only get 1 ticket per 30 minutes. You can buy extra tickets if you need to play more to stay in a tier or because you haven't met the minimum requirements of an event. 5 tickets cost 100 gold, which is the same as buying tickets to get ahead in a challenge. Only buy tickets if the increased reward for the higher tier placement is worth it. It's a waste of gold if it doesn't increase your winnings significantly. Repeated use of a car for 10 races will mean servicing is needed. This isn't expensive, but if you can avoid it, then it's best to save your gold. The cost of servicing cars is shown in the table on screen. Cars automatically service themselves at short intervals to regain racing ability without paying gold. A common car only needs 5 gold to regain all 10 races from servicing. Uncommon is 10 gold, rare is 15 gold, super rare is 20 gold, ultra rare is 24 gold, epic is 28 gold, and legendary requires payment of 30 gold to regain health for all 10 races. Changing your hands. The 5 cars you pick when you join an event don't need to be the 5 cars you use throughout the event. You can change your cars if you work out a better hand or if the players in your bracket have a specific car that makes it difficult for you to compete with them. Copying a couple of cars from other people's hands can often help you maintain your position in the bracket. Secondary hands. If it's an important event like a Tri-Series final, you can join the event with a secondary hand while your primary hand is upgrading. You will see a few people do this. Their hands instantly get better on the last day of the event. There's not much you can do about it, just hope they don't take your place in the top 10. If you think about it, they are willing to upgrade better cards than you have, therefore they should come above you in the table. Overfilling brackets. While each event has a bracket maximum capacity, when it gets to the last 4 hours, you may see additional players being added to your bracket. As I said earlier, this is to stop new brackets being opened with only small numbers of players in them. The overfilling of brackets is controversial, but it is presumed by Hutch that most players should not be affected during important events, as the additional players will not have time to play the minimum races. If you are looking to avoid joining an old established bracket, then definitely join before the last 4 hours of an event. On the flip side, if you want to take your chances joining late, buying loads of tickets and servicing your cars, then that's your choice. I wouldn't brag about it too much though. Late joiners often get a lot of hate when it works out well for them. Broken brackets. There's a lot of talk about broken brackets in events. People get very angry about it. A broken bracket is when the bracket you are in doesn't fill up to the maximum. You might join and then only a couple more people join after you, leaving it half empty for the remainder of the time left on the event. Often, if an event has a broken bracket with substantial time left on the clock, it'll start to refill a bit later in the day or the next day. The events people get annoyed over is the broken brackets that are only 4 or 5 hours before the event ends. If those brackets stick with only a dozen cars in them, then potentially everyone in the bracket could win a prize car. I'm happy to put my head out here and say if that happens, then good luck to those people. It won't happen often to the same people, so don't stress over it. You can't change it, and maybe one day it'll happen to you. Bracket splitting during updates. Every month or so, Hutch release an update to get a new season content into the game. This is an opportunity for the players to take advantage of split brackets. Let me explain. Your bracket was split when you run the update, putting those who have updated in a new bracket and leaving those who haven't updated in the old bracket. This can potentially give you greater rewards, as the event will have less players in it. It is your decision when to update. In some cases it's better to update straight away and try to be the first few players to get into the new bracket. If you are, you could play a lot of tickets against a Hutch bot or a poorer hand who has updated, and amass more points than you would have without the split. If you stay behind, then the number of players in your bracket will reduce and you will naturally move up the table and gain better rewards. There are pros and cons for both tactics, but hopefully a split bracket can win you slightly more rewards either way. Remember, an update is generally forced after 24 hours, so this will only work on the initial day of the update release. After it is forced, all players will be moved over into the new bracket. Saving hands. There is a bug that loses your hand and replaces it with a hand from another event. This is annoying, but it's easily solved by saving your hand for each event you enter. Then you can quickly reload it if it happens. The save hand and load hand options are on the menu bar. It's the 3 lines button in the top right. Farming techniques. There is a farming technique that a few people use. They believe they gain more cards from the prize board by doing it. I'm not sure if it pays off a great deal more than just playing normally and winning and losing as you play. Anyway, the farming technique is to lose 20 races with a very weak hand, quitting before you select your opponent. Make sure you hit that quit button on the top left of the screen before you select your opponent. You know, the one where you scroll through and pick your opponent. That screen. That will give you a lot of losses and doesn't give anyone else a win because you hadn't selected an opponent. Once you have lost enough points in the table and are at the bottom, then play 20 tickets with your best hand to climb up the table. On the way up, you will clear prize boards with 3-star wins. If your points were low enough, you won't even break out of last place until you've cleared a lot of prizes. The issue I have with this is if you don't have a bracket winning hand, then you may not be able to make it up the table, since there are always a lot of good players in the mid-table who are only there because they haven't played much, but they do have a solid hand. Breaking through that barrier can be harder than playing the people in the top 10 sometimes. I think playing your best hand, winning and losing, will clear roughly the same amount of cards on the prize board. And it doesn't leave you potentially too low when the event ends. That's certainly what I do. Let's talk about event types. What is different about the different events that are presented to you? The daily event is a 24-hour long event with 100 players per bracket. It normally uses high-end RQ cards with track sets that repeat regularly. It is available for all players over RQ 495. Most normal events are to win a ceramic pack. They have a random track set and card criteria with slightly better rewards than the daily event. These are normally set up for different personal RQ ranges, so newer players are not put in with longer term players. When there is a challenge available in the game, there will be about a dozen events that will give you tokens to get you access to the different levels of the challenge. You must play enough of these events to get you the tokens to progress through the challenge. Normally the rewards for these challenges are slightly better than the ceramic events. Tri-Series Quals, Prelims and Finals events have good rewards connected to winning a legendary prize car. In the Quals and Prelims there are different events for different personal RQ levels. But in the Tri-Series Finals, all players over 330 RQ will be in the same event, which means newer players will have to compete against the bigger long-term players. The 3 GT Series Quals events work the same way as the Tri-Series Quals events, where there are different events set up for different personal RQ levels. The rewards are generally good from each of the 3 GT Series Quals events, giving out packs that help compete in the challenges. Sometimes there are special endurance events set up for playing high numbers of tickets over 3 or 4 days. These give out very special packs and are normally set up so everyone in a 128 player bracket gets a good reward. The thing to note on endurance events is that you must play the minimum race required. To help with that, the tickets refresh twice as quickly as normal events, every 15 minutes. The big thing with the endurance events is the rewards on offer include guaranteed legendary packs, titanium packs and carbon fibres. The events are normally set up with a 128 player bracket, but the rewards show for tiers greater than 128. This allows people who don't complete the minimum races required to win something, just not the great prizes. Clubs events are run slightly differently. They are open to players above RQ 250 and cycle around a 2-day repeating process. Clubs is a whole different video. If you want to watch my video on making money in clubs events, then you can find it in the tips playlist on my YouTube channel. And that is all. Hopefully I've not missed anything important out. This has been a mammoth video, so I can't imagine that I've left much out. Surely nothing. Thank you for sticking with it until the end. I hope these tips videos are useful to people. Not people, you. Useful to you. You're the important one. So thank you for watching. The bell has rung, school time is over. Get yourself out of here. We are done.